Jamerson again. So I'm a little excited to be telling this story about famous bass player James Jamerson Sr., who was the guy. I mean, he's, to me and to a lot of professional musicians, he's the greatest bass player ever. We all copied him. I don't care what you said. You copied James Jamerson at some point. Slap bass, solo bass, groove play, whoever, whatever style, whatever music, you all copied James Jamerson because he was the man. I became friends with James Jamerson Jr. in the late 70s. We met, and of course we were both up to no good as far as, drugs and women. The only difference was I was single and James was married. He was married to Peaches, who was a pretty girl who was the younger sister of Jane Kennedy. And Jane Kennedy was a well-known star, up-and-coming star on television. She did movies, television shows, and she was also a newscaster personality. And so James and I hung out a lot, and Peaches told James to tell me that my little sister's coming from Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio. And if he wouldn't mind, could he be like, chaperone her while she's here? So I said, yeah. Had no idea that Brenda, the little sister, was going to be as fine as they come. Very pretty girl. And so the four of us got together and went out, James and Peaches and me and Brenda. And we started going out. She was only here for about a week, but after the first date, I took her home. Of course, I picked her up in the Ferrari, and she was a little impressed. And so from after the first date, I was at Jane Kennedy's house every day. Is Brenda home? Can I talk to Brenda? And Jane Kennedy looked at me like, you again? What are you doing here? I came to pick up Brenda. So Brenda and I hung out a lot. She was so sweet. She just was, I fell in love. If I wasn't so stupid and young, I would have married her. But she eventually went back to Ohio. She was a highway patrol officer in Ohio. And she liked me, and we got along really well. Anyway, one day, the two couples, James and Peaches and me and Brenda, we went to, Jane invited us to come meet her new boyfriend. And so the four of us went to meet this guy. Turned out he was a big DJ named Frankie Crocker. He was like one of the big famous East Coast radio jocks at the time. What a funky guy he was. He was, man, that guy was so self-centered and egotistical. He didn't show me and James Jamerson Jr. no respect at all. I mean, first of all, I pulled up in a Ferrari with my girl. He didn't say anything. He looked and didn't say anything, and I think he was driving an old Lamborghini, not old, but it was driving a Lamborghini that was rented. And I mean, how many young 25, 26-year-old brothers driving a Ferrari in LA? I mean, just didn't even mention nothing like, hey, I like your car, brother, nothing like that. He was not a kind guy. And he kind of ignored us through the whole visit we were there. And no small talk. He didn't talk about music. No music stories. I mean, I'm sure he met a lot of famous musicians in New York. And he knew James and I were both bass players. So the only thing we did with him, we had a pool game, and he ran the table and then walked off, didn't even talk to us after he beat the hell out of us on the pool table, just walked off. So that guy was an egomaniac. Bless his heart, he passed away some years ago, but boy, that was an adventure. So I want to tell you once James Jamerson Jr. invited me over to his house off of La Cienega down by the 10 freeway. His family, his mom and dad and brother and sister, all lived in this house over there off of La Cienega. And he invited me over. He said, come over, I want you to meet my dad Saturday morning. I got in my car and drove over to the house and found the house and pulled in the driveway. As soon as I shut the engine off, I could hear the living room upstairs there above the garage, bass. Somebody was playing bass. I went, oh, wow, Jamerson in the house playing bass. I get to see James Jamerson Sr. playing bass. And I turned off the car, got out and went to the door, rang the doorbell. As soon as I rang the doorbell, he stopped playing. I could hear the bass stop. And James brought me in. Hey, Bobby, come on, I want you to meet my dad. And he walked me over. He said, Dad, this is my friend Bobby Watson. He's a bass player too. And James looked at me, oh, how you doing? And didn't shake my hand or nothing. Just went up the stairs and disappeared. So I think he was, I don't know. I'm just glad I was standing there and he looked at me and I looked at him. And I could still hear the bass in the living room. He had it plugged into an amp. I could hear the strings vibrating from the living room. But man, I really wanted to see him pluck a few notes so I could have that in my brain, in my memory. But he stopped as soon as I got in the house. And then I went in the kitchen and met James' mom and his sister Penny. I didn't meet the younger brother, but I don't even know if he was there. But and then after about an hour, I left, because James Sr. never came back down, so I never got a chance to see him or talk or take a picture or nothing like that. So during that time, though, James Jr. was kind of tearing it up, doing sessions all over LA. James would come to my house sometimes and we'd sit on the couch and play bass together. I would play electric bass, he would play an acoustic bass. And we'd just sit there and jam, play little riffs or whatever. And first thing I noticed about his playing was he really had his dad's vibe going on. And when I say his dad's vibe, Jamerson had a way of thinking about moving, how he moved on the bass. It was different from anybody else. And James Jr. had the same kind of way of thinking. And I would be playing and I would be listening more than I would be playing because Jr. had that same kind of vibe. And I was like, man, that's nice, James. Do that again. He said, I can't do it again. I gotta go here now or something. And I was like, okay. And so, I think James, we didn't talk a lot, but I think he was, even though he had his dad's genes, he wasn't willing to go down the same road and just be a continuation of James Jamerson through him. He wanted to do something different, and he wanted to move past his dad's crowd and create his own little crowd. So he played different. He played a fretless bass. I was like, what are you doing with that thing? He says, yeah, no, I kind of dig this fretless. And he could play it. He played it in tune. And he also, he slapped too. He would slap the bass. And, it wasn't like, Louis Johnson or, any of those other guys, as Larry Graham, but he could slap. And I wanted to say, look, stop all that and just play the groove thing. But it would have been wasted on his ears because he did what he did. And, James Jamerson Jr.'s, my favorite bass track of his is September, Earth, Wind and Fire. Dun, 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 dun. Boom, 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 dun, 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 dun. Like that, yeah. That was James Jamerson Jr. playing that. A lot of people think it was Verdine White, but that was James Jamerson Jr. He got the call from Al McKay and recorded that track. And there's a lot of other tunes that James Jamerson Jr. played on that was like, he just was incredible. So James would hang out with me and come to my house, and at that time I put the Bobby Watson band together, and I was just kind of playing locally. Rufus was not doing much in those days, and so it was the late '70s. So I was, just put a little band together, and I would be playing. And one time we played at Josephina's down in Sherman Oaks, and James came down, he walked in the door and I saw him. And so when I took my first break after the first set, James came up to me, he said, "Bobby, come here, come out to the car, I got something to show you." So I followed him out to the car. He opened the door, I looked in, it was an old bass, like all black and brown. It was like faded and scratched, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" He said, "This is the funk machine, the bass that my dad used on all the Motown recordings, all those hits." My mouth fell open. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I almost fell on the ground. And he laughed when he saw my face. He laughed, and I said, "Can I play it? Can I play it? Can I play it?" And he started laughing, and he said, "Yeah, go ahead." So we brought the bass in to Josephina's, and I didn't say anything to anybody. I just brought the bass in, put a strap on it, put it on, plugged it into my 360 acoustic bass amp, because that's what I've always used my whole playing career, is a 360 acoustic bass amp, a refrigerator, I call it, the small refrigerator. And so I plugged it in and hung the bass on there and waited till the second set. Second set came, Moon Calhoun was on drums from the Gap Band, and we did some tune and he was syncopating, and I just found a little pocket, and I just laid on that pocket. I forgot what song we're playing, but I remember it was so funky, and the bass that Jamerson played. It was, that thing was like, it had a very, very low, deep tone. And it was only 4 strings, just like a regular P bass. It was a 62 P bass. And it had a very unusual low end on it, like deeper than your regular Fender bass that you pull off the shelf at a music store. And the strings were very thick, flat wound. I think the gauge was maybe bigger than, the regular 105. The low E was maybe a 110. And they were just heavy and thick, and the neck was bowed from the strings being so heavy, pulling, the neck bowed. But, when I was playing that bass, I didn't pay attention to any of that, because the sound that it made when you hit a note and just let it ring, it was so deep and just full and wide. And we started playing, and I looked, and the tables were rattling, and the floor, the seats were rattling, the ceiling was... And I thought, this is what a bass is supposed to do, rattle the building when you're playing a song. And so I really loved playing that thing. At the end of at the end of the second set, I gave it back to him, and I started thinking, that bass was. I don't think it was stock. I believe actually that James didn't know, but I think one of the engineers at Motown might have took James's bass, James Senior's bass, and I don't know, went inside and did some, altered the electronics or put a booster or something on there. I don't know if they had that technology back then. But somebody at Motown probably did know a little bit of something, because that bass had a lot more volume, a lot more low end, and it was just wide and deep sounding. It could have been the strings, it could have been any number of things, but I think somebody messed with the electronics on that bass to give it that big old sound. And, all those recordings with that bass, everything that Jamerson played, it just was so crispy, clear, and heavy, and deep, and meaningful. Bass, when it's played right, is meaningful. So, anyway, I I never thought to take a picture with the bass or with James. I have a few pictures. I have a few pictures with James Jamerson Jr. That I'll put up. But man, now that I think back on it, I would have loved to have had a picture standing at the steps with Jamerson Sr. or with the upright in the living room, or anything from those days, because I was there with my bass hero in his home, said hi before he went up the stairs, and was in his presence. And James later on told me his dad had been drinking a little bit that morning, so he might have been a little sour and not in the mood for meeting any new people or trying to, because probably figured this guy's going to ask me everything under the sun about bass, about playing and what song, how did you do that? And I don't blame him for not wanting to be bothered, but man, I would have loved to have talked to James Jamerson Sr. for a little bit, or took a picture in his house or something. Anyway, I got this good story. It's in my head. It's a good memory for me. And also the memory of Jane Kennedy's baby sister, Brenda, whom I fell in love with while she was here visiting with her two big sisters. All right, so you guys, thanks for watching. I'll come up with some more stories and put them up. James and I became friends and called me and said, hey, our baby sister's coming to LA. Would you be interested in chaperoning her and taking her around and meeting her? And I said, yeah, sure. So Brenda Harrison, I think they're all their names, all the girls, their family name is Harrison, although Brenda, James Kennedy, cut.